Hey everyone, 99% of you watching aren't subscribed. Let's change that. Hit that subscribe button, and at 1,000 subscribers, we'll drop special stories just for you.
Queen Phyrexia did not merely rule, she dominated. The throne chamber of THRYSS was carved from a single formation of black crystal, its jagged spires rising like frozen lightning to a vaulted ceiling that pulsed with faint bioluminescent veins. Every surface reflected her form as she stood at the center of it all, 8 feet tall, her exoskeletal armor shifting in shades of violet and obsidian, her crown grown, not forged, from living mineral. She had never been challenged, not by her own kind, not by the dozens of species her empire had crushed, absorbed, or simply outlived, and certainly not by humans. They negotiate with emotion, Phyrexia said, circling slowly before her assembled court. Her long, clawed fingers traced the air as if dissecting an invisible specimen. They build alliances based on trust. Trust. She tasted the word like something bitter, a structural weakness disguised as virtue. A ripple of low, clicking approval spread through the chamber. Below her, kneeling in perfect symmetry, were the high minds, scientists, strategists, genetic architects. Their elongated skulls shimmer with embedded data filaments, each one processing thousands of variables at once. They existed to think. She existed to decide. And yet, one of them said carefully, humans persist beyond projected extinction thresholds. Their survival rate in hostile environments exceeds. Statistical logic. Phyrexia interrupted. Yes, I have read your reports. She turned sharply, her gaze cutting through the dim light. Persistence is not superiority, she continued. It is noise, random adaptation, inefficient, unrefined. Another high mind hesitated before speaking. Your radiance, there's a theory we have not yet fully explored. Phyrexia stilled. That alone caused a subtle tension to ripple through the court. Speak, she commanded. The scientist lifted its head slightly. Human genetic architecture displays an unusual compatibility potential. Their cellular structures accept foreign integration at a rate we have not observed in any other species. Silence deepened. Go on, Phyrexia said, her tone sharpening. There is speculation, the scientist continued, that under controlled conditions, cross-species hybridization may be possible. A pause. Then, laughter. It burst from Phyrexia like a fracture in reality itself. Sharp, resonant, echoing off the crystal walls until it seemed the entire chamber was laughing with her. It was not amusement alone. It was dismissal, dominance, disbelief made sound. Hybridization, she repeated, stepping down from her elevated platform. Each footfall echoed like a verdict. With humans, she stopped directly before the scientist, towering over it. You are proposing, she said slowly, that we, the apex of biological perfection, would dilute ourselves with a species that still destroys itself over invisible lines and imagined gods. The scientist lowered its gaze. Not dilute your radiance. Evolve. The word hung in the air. For a fraction of a second, something flickered in Phyrexia's expression. Not doubt, not agreement, consideration. Then it vanished. I would sooner merge with vacuum, she said coldly. The chamber fell into absolute stillness. Erase this line of research, she continued, turning away. Redirect resources to expansion along the Kari's belt. If humans persist, it is because no one has deemed them worth eliminating. Yes, your radiance. The court responded in unison. But as the assembly began to dissolve, one of the high minds remained kneeling. Phyrexia noticed. You hesitate, she said without turning. The scientist spoke carefully. Only because anomalies often precede breakthroughs. Phyrexia slowly looked back over her shoulder. Her eyes glowed brighter, dangerously so. Then consider this your final lesson, she said. Not all anomalies are worth surviving. The message was clear. The scientist bowed lower. And yet, somewhere deep within the vast data networks of THRYSS, the idea was not erased. It was archived, hidden, waiting, far beyond the throne chamber, beyond the spires of living crystal and the orbiting defense rings. A small human vessel drifted at the edge of Thrishan space. Its systems flickered. Its crew, what remained of them, scrambled to stabilize a mission that had already gone wrong. Commander Elias Wren stared out at the alien world before him. Beautiful, one of his officers whispered. Elias didn't answer, because he wasn't looking at the planet. He was looking at the readings. "They're scanning us," he said quietly. "How advanced?" He hesitated. Then, "More than we are." A silence settled over the bridge. "Should we retreat?" Another voice asked. Elias shook his head slowly. "No," he said. "We came here to make contact." Outside, unseen and unstoppable, Thrishan systems locked onto human vessel. Deep within her palace, Queen Virexia paused mid-stride. She felt it, a disturbance. Small, insignificant, human. Her lips curled slightly, not quite a smile. "Interesting," she murmured, and for the first time, the species she had mocked had her attention. The human ship never stood a chance. It didn't explode. It didn't even fight. One moment. It drifted at the edge of Thrishan space, broadcasting cautious signals, repeating its peaceful intent in dozens of languages. The next, space itself seemed to bend around it. Invisible forces wrapped the vessel in a lattice of energy, silencing its engines, freezing its systems mid-command. On the bridge, Commander Elias Wren felt the shift before he understood it. "All power's gone," one officer shouted. "No," Elias corrected quietly, watching the dead controls flicker uselessly. "Not gone. Suppressed." The stars outside distorted, as if something massive had just noticed them. Then came the light, not from outside, but inside the ship. Thin lines of violet energy spread across the walls like veins, pulsing once, and everything went dark. Elias woke on cold, reflective stone. No restraints, no visible guards. That alone told him more than any threat could have. He sat up slowly, his senses adjusting. The air was different, denser, charged with something faintly metallic. The room around him was vast and angular, its walls formed from the same black crystal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. He wasn't alone. Other humans lay scattered across the chamber, his crew, unconscious but breathing. "Good," he muttered under his breath. A low hum filled the space. Then, footsteps, heavy, measured, unhurried. Elias looked up, and for the first time, he saw her. Queen Virexia did not enter the room. She arrived in it, like gravity had shifted in her favor. Flanked by two towering figures of similar design, though smaller, she moved with absolute certainty. Her gaze fell on the humans not as individuals, but as data points, until it reached Elias. He was already standing. That, more than anything, caught her interest. "You recover quickly," she said, her voice resonating to the chamber like a control vibration. Elias met her gaze. "I could say the same about your entrance," he replied. One of the guards shifted slightly, reacting to the tone. Virexia did not. Instead, she stepped closer. Up close, she was even more imposing, her height forcing Elias to tilt his head slightly, her presence pressing against him like an invisible weight. Her armor wasn't worn. It was part of her, flowing subtly as if alive. "You are their leader," she stated. "Yes." "You are not afraid." Elias considered that. "I am," he said honestly. "I just don't see the point in showing it." A pause. Then something unexpected flickered in her expression. Not approval, but recognition. "Interesting," she said. The humans were not imprisoned in the way Elias expected. They were contained, observed. Each crew member was placed in an individual chamber, transparent barriers humming faintly, scanning constantly. No chains, no interrogations, no violence, just study. Elias, however, was treated differently. He was moved, escorted through corridors that seemed to grow organically from the structure itself, past beings that barely acknowledged him, into deeper layers of Thrishan society. Eventually, he was brought into a circular chamber filled with floating geometric constructs, data made visible. The high minds, they did not greet him. They dissected him with their eyes, their instruments, their endless calculations. "Subject displays stable neural coherence," one murmured. "Elevated stress response, but controlled." Adaptive posture unusual. Elias crossed his arms. You could just ask questions, he said. A few of them paused. That, apparently, was not standard procedure. Then Virexia entered. The entire chamber shifted subtly in response to her presence. Begin, she said. And they did. Days, or what passed for days, blurred together. Elias was tested, scanned, questioned, but never harmed. That was the strangest part. Why? He asked her once, during a rare moment when they were alone. Virexia stood across from him, reviewing streams of data that hovered in the air like light made solid. Why what? Why keep us alive, he said, if we're so inferior? She didn't look at him immediately. Because inferiority does not preclude usefulness, she replied. He smirked slightly. That's comforting. She turned then, her glowing eyes narrowing just a fraction. You misunderstand, she said. You are not here for your benefit. Yeah, Elias said. I figured that part out. Another pause. Then, you do not behave as expected, she said. Neither do you, he shot back. Silence. It stretched longer this time. You speak to me without deference, she noted. You haven't killed me yet, Elias replied. I'm testing the boundaries. Something almost like amusement flickered across her features. Almost. The anomaly began as a fluctuation, a minor irregularity in the data streams collected from Elias's cellular structure. Repeat the scan, one of the high minds said. They did. Same result. Cross-reference with Thrishan baseline. A pause. Then, that's not possible. The chamber grew still. What is it? Virexia demanded. The data shifted, expanding, reconfiguring. His cells are not rejecting exposure to our biofield, the scientist said. They're adapting to it. That is expected, another replied. Primitive resilience. No, the first said, not adapting to survive. A longer pause. Adapting to integrate. That word again. Virexia stepped forward. Explain. We've exposed dozens of species to control Thrishan energy fields, the scientist said. All of them degrade, collapse, reject. And him. The scientist hesitated. His cells are changing to match the field. Elias, standing off to the side, raised an eyebrow. Is that bad? He asked. No one answered him, because no one knew. The next phase was not planned. It was authorized by Virexia. Increase exposure, she ordered. Your radiance, one of the high minds began. Controlled, she clarified. Monitored. I want to understand the limit. Elias looked at her. You're using me as a lab experiment, he said. Yes, she replied without hesitation. He exhaled slowly. Okay, he said. Just try not to break me. I do not break things without purpose, she said. That's slightly reassuring. The chamber was prepared, energy fields calibrated, sensors aligned with precision that bordered on obsession. Elias stood at the center, surrounded by faintly glowing lines of Thrishan energy. Virexia watched from just beyond the boundary. Begin, she said. The field activated. At first, nothing happened. Then Elias inhaled sharply, not in pain, in awareness. He felt it, something moving through him, not invading, not forcing, responding. What is this? He whispered. No one answered, because the readings were changing too fast. Cellular resonance increasing, neural activity spiking, genetic markers shifting. Impossible. Virexia stepped closer, too close. Close enough that the edge of the field brushed against her. For a fraction of a second, the energy surged, not outward, between them. A flash, subtle, almost invisible. But it was enough. The system stabilized immediately after. Elias collapsed to one knee, breathing hard. Okay, he said weakly. That felt important. The chamber fell into stunned silence. The data stream slowed, then normalized. Too quickly, as if nothing had happened at all. Virexia straightened, her expression unreadable. End the test, she said. The field shut down. The moment passed. Dismissed. Filed away as an anomaly. But later, As the high minds reviewed the data, one detail refused to disappear. A brief spike, a synchronization event, two biological signatures, interacting, not violently, not destructively, but compatibly. Deep within the systems of Teacher Weiss's, the archive theory stirred, and for the first time, it was no longer theoretical. The first sign was not pain. It was silence. Queen Vyrexia stood alone in her private chamber, a vast, hollow space carved from deep violet crystal, its walls alive with faint pulses of energy that mirrored her own biological rhythms. Normally, the chamber resonated with her presence, responding subtly to her thoughts, her movements. Now it hesitated. The light dimmed half a second too late. The air shifted out of sync. A delay. Small, insignificant, impossible. Vyrexia stilled. Her kind did not fall out of harmony with their environment. They were the harmony. And yet, something was off. The second sign was sharper. A flicker in her perception. She reached for a data stream. 1,000 she processed effortlessly at any given moment, and it slipped. Not gone. Just delayed. Like trying to grasp something through water. Her eyes narrowed. Run internal diagnostics, she commanded. The response came instantly from within. All systems. Optimal. She did not trust it. The third sign came uninvited. A thought, not hers. It wasn't a voice. It wasn't even a coherent idea. Just an impression. Warm. Curious. Alive. Vyrexia froze. For the first time in centuries, she did not understand what she was experiencing, and she hated it. The royal physicians were summoned immediately. They arrived in silence, their elongated forms folding low in deference as they entered her chamber. Unlike the high minds, these were specialists in biology, not theory but function. Scan, she ordered. No ceremony, no explanation. They obeyed. Fields of soft blue light enveloped her form, passing through her exoskeleton, mapping every layer of her being with microscopic precision. Data unfolded in complex geometric structures, hovering in the air between them. At first, nothing appeared unusual. Then, pause, one of them said. The others froze. Recalibrate and isolate lower core region. The scan adjusted. The geometry shifted. And then, silence. A heavy, suffocating silence. Vyrexia stepped forward. What do you see? She demanded. No one answered. That, more than anything, ignited something dangerous in her. You will respond, she said, her voice dropping into something colder than command. The chief physician turned slowly. For the first time since entering the chamber, it looked afraid. It is not possible, it said. I am not interested in what is possible. Vyrexia snapped. I am interested in what is... A pause. Then, carefully, there is a secondary biological structure developing within you. The words landed without impact, as if they meant nothing. Vyrexia stared at the projection. Explain, she said. It is self-organizing, the physician continued, drawing energy from your core systems, integrating with your biology at a foundational level. Her eyes narrowed. A parasite. No, the physician said immediately, not invasive. It is not attacking your system. Then what is it doing? Another pause. The physician hesitated, and that hesitation told her everything. Say it, Vyrexia ordered. It is growing, the physician said quietly. The chamber felt smaller. Vyrexia turned away, her mind racing, not in chaos, but in rapid, precise calculations. Identify its origin, she said. We are attempting to... Now. The physicians exchanged brief, silent signals. Then the data shifted. Genetic structures unfolded, layered, compared, matched. And then, the impossible became undeniable. It contains Thrishan genetic markers. One said, that is expected. Another replied, yes, the first said, but not exclusively. The chamber went still again. Vyrexia did not turn. Continue, she said. The final layer appeared. Foreign, distinct, human. It is a hybrid construct, the chief physician said, its voice barely steady. A fusion of your biology and the human subject designated Elias Wren. The words echoed, not through the chamber, through her. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then, a sound, soft at first, then sharper, then laughter. It tore from her, sudden and violent, echoing off the crystal walls just as it had in the throne chamber weeks before. But this time, it wasn't the same. It wasn't dismissive. It wasn't amused. It was disbelief pushed past its limit. "A human?" she said, the word almost distorting in her voice. "You are telling me that I—" She stopped. The laughter cut off instantly, because the data hadn't changed. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a miscalculation. It was real. Her gaze hardened. "Bring him to me?" Elias Wren had been in containment when the summons came. No explanation. No delay. Just immediate relocation. Escorted through corridors he had begun to recognize, though never fully understand. Something was different. The guards were more rigid. The air felt heavier. "Okay," he muttered under his breath. "That's never a good sign." When he entered the chamber, he saw her immediately. Virexia stood at the center, completely still, too still. Around her, the physicians remained at a distance, silent, tense. Elias stepped forward cautiously. "You wanted to see me?" She turned, and for the first time since he had met her, he saw something he could not name. Not anger. Not exactly. Something deeper. "You will explain this," she said. "I'm going to need a little more context," he replied. The data projection shifted, expanded, displayed. Elias looked at it. At first, he didn't understand what he was seeing. Then, "Oh," he said, "a beat." Then, "Oh." Silence filled the chamber. He looked back at her. "You're serious." Her gaze sharpened. "Do I appear otherwise?" "No," he admitted. "No, you definitely don't." He ran a hand through his hair, pacing once, then stopping. "That's not possible," he said. "That statement has already been made." Virexia replied coldly. "It has also been proven incorrect." Elias exhaled. "Okay," he said slowly. "Let's think about this." "You will not think about this," she snapped. "You will explain how it occurred." "I don't know." He shot back, then caught himself. I really don't know." The chamber tensed. He raised his hand slightly. "Look, the only time anything weird happened was during that energy test," he said. "That spike thing." The physicians reacted immediately. "The synchronization event," one murmured. Virexia's gaze shifted slightly. "Explain," she said. "It was brief," the physician said. "A resonance between both biological signatures. We believed it to be inconsequential." "It wasn't," Elias said. "No," Virexia said quietly. "It wasn't." The realization settled slowly, not as panic, not as fear, but as something far more dangerous. Change. Virexia turned away from him again, her mind already recalculating everything she knew. Her species, her biology, her certainty. All of it incomplete. Behind her, Elias watched in silence. Then, carefully, "So what happens now?" he asked. No one answered immediately, because there was no precedent, no protocol, no rule, only one truth. Something impossible had already begun, and it wasn't going to stop. The empire of THRYSS did not panic. It recalculated. From the highest spires of the capital to the outermost defense rings orbiting distant stars, information flowed, controlled, filtered, precise. The official narrative was simple. The Queen was undergoing a transformation. No one questioned it aloud, but everyone felt it, because Queen Virexia had withdrawn. Her absence was not weakness. It was containment. The inner sanctum, once a place of meditation and strategic clarity, had become something else entirely. Layers of energy fields now surrounded her, not as restraints, but as stabilizers. Streams of data flowed constantly, monitored by the high minds and royal physicians alike. And at the center of it all, Virexia stood, changed, not visibly at first glance. Her towering form remained as imposing as ever, her armor still gleaming with shifting hues of violet and black. But her presence, it no longer pressed down on the world. It moved with it. "You are adapting faster than projected," one of the high minds observed. Virexia didn't look at it. "I am not adapting," she said. "I am integrating." The distinction mattered. She could feel it every moment now. The presence within her, not foreign, not invasive, connected. It did not drain her strength. It did not weaken her mind. It expanded it. At times, her thoughts split. One path cold and precise as always, the other exploratory, open, curious in ways her species had long since evolved beyond. At first, she resisted it. Now, she studied it. Elias stood at the edge of the chamber, arms crossed, watching her. He had been granted a level of access no human, no outsider should have ever received. Not as a prisoner anymore, not even as a subject. Something closer to necessary. "You're different," he said. Virexia turned slightly. "You continue to state the obvious," she replied. "Yeah," he said, "but this time I mean it." She studied him. There was something about his presence that had changed too, not physically, but in how the environment responded to him. The Thrishan systems no longer rejected him. They accommodated him. "You are still afraid," she said. "Of course I am," Elias answered. "You're an 8-foot alien queen carrying something no one understands, and I might somehow be part of it." A pause. "Statistically," he added, "that's not a comforting situation." Virexia considered that. "Fear does not seem to impair your function," she said. "It helps me think," he replied. "Sometimes." Another silence. Then, "It does not feel like fear," she said quietly. Elias frowned slightly. "What doesn't?" "This," she said, placing a clawed hand lightly against her core. For a moment, the energy fields around her pulsed in response. "It feels like," she paused. The word did not come easily. Anticipation. The court could not be held off forever. Eventually, the high minds insisted. "The empire requires stability," one said. "Your absence creates variables. Then they will receive clarity," Virexia replied. And so the summons was sent. The throne chamber filled once more. Every rank of Thrishan hierarchy present. War leaders, genetic architects, planetary governors. The air hummed with restrained tension. They had all heard the rumors. None of them knew the truth. Until she entered, the doors did not open. They parted. The crystal itself bending to her will, as Virexia stepped forward, her full presence returning to the space like a force of nature reclaiming its domain. A hush fell instantly. She walked to the center, turned, faced them all. "You have observed changes," she said. No one responded. "You have calculated outcomes," she continued. "Projected instability, weakness, deviation." A ripple of unease moved through the assembly. Then, "Your calculations are incomplete." That got their attention. Behind her, the air shimmered. A projection formed. Not data this time. Reality. The internal scans. The truth. A collective intake of breath swept the chamber. "It is real," one of the high minds whispered. "It is impossible," another said. Virexia raised her hand. Silence returned instantly. "This," she said, her voice resonating deeper than ever before, "is not an error." She stepped forward. "It is not contamination." Another step. "It is not weakness." Her gaze swept across them, sharp, unyielding. "It is evolution." The word hit harder this time, because now they could see it. At the edge of the chamber, Elias stood under heavy guard, not as a prisoner, but not fully free either. A living contradiction, just like everything else unfolding. He watched their reactions. Shock, resistance, calculation, fear. "Here we go," he muttered under his breath. This hybridization, one of the high minds said carefully, was not sanctioned. It was not controlled. It represents an unknown variable at the highest level of our biological hierarchy. "Yes," Virexia said. The simplicity of the answer caught them off guard. "And you will eliminate it?" another asked. The chamber stilled. Elias tensed. Virexia did not hesitate. "No." The word landed like a fracture. "That is not a strategic response." One began. "It is the only response," she interrupted. Energy rippled subtly through the chamber. "Not aggressive, but absolute. You have spent cycles pursuing perfection," she said. "Refining, isolating, controlling." Her gaze sharpened. And yet, this occurred without your design. A pause. What does that tell you? No one answered, because the implication was clear. There was something beyond their control, and it had chosen her. Virexia turned slightly. Bring it forward, she said. The physicians stepped in, their movement precise, almost reverent now. The chamber darkened slightly as the energy fields adjusted. And then, the birth was not violent. It was not chaotic. It was luminous. A pulse of light radiated outward, not blinding, but undeniable. The crystal walls responded, glowing in harmonics never before recorded. The air itself seemed to hold still. Elias stepped forward instinctively, stopped only by a guard's outstretched arm. Let him pass. Virexia said. The guard hesitated, then obeyed. Elias moved closer, his eyes fixed on what was happening. Is this normal for you? He asked quietly. No, Virexia replied. There was no fear in her voice, only focus. And then it was there, small, fragile, and yet impossibly present. The child. Its form was unlike anything in the chamber. Sleek and partially armored, but softer than a Thrishan. Its eyes opened almost immediately, glowing faintly with the same energy as Virexia's, but different, warmer, aware. The chamber held its breath. Virexia lifted the child carefully. For the first time, carefully, she turned to face her empire. This, she said, her voice no longer just authority, but something more, something new, is not an aberration. Silence. It is not a failure of purity. Her gaze hardened. It is the next step. One of the high minds stepped forward, unable to remain silent. And what will it become? It asked. Virexia looked down at the child. The child looked back, not confused, not afraid, understanding. Then she looked up again. That, she said, is no longer a question you are capable of answering. Elias let out a slow breath. Well, he muttered, that's one way to change galactic history. Virexia glanced at him briefly. For once, she said, you are not incorrect. The chamber remained silent, not in resistance, not anymore, in realization, because something had shifted, not just in their queen, not just in their biology, but in the direction of their entire civilization. For the first time in their recorded existence, the future of THRYSS was no longer predictable. And for the first time, that was not a flaw. It was possibility.